Monday, April 22nd, 2024.
Recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll take a roll call. Mike Joseph,
Here.
Dale Macklin,
Here.
Fran Hudson,
Here.
Ray Karen,
Here.
Adam Lynn,
Here.
Lee is absent, Jeff West.
Here.
Do we have any disclosure of conflicts of interest tonight?
I believe so.
I have the approval of the minutes for the previous meeting for the April 8th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Second. Oops, go ahead.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lynn,
Yes.
absent Jeff West,
Yes.
and Mike Joseph.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. We have no communications, no table business. On to old business. Ordinance number 6-2024 to repeal Chapter 2 Administration. No.
Ordinance 062/2024.
Thank you. An amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone a portion of the low-density residential district to the mixed-use district. The portion is described as all properties abutting the east side of the Augusta Road from the portion approximately 569 feet south of Millennium Drive, heading south on the Vassaboro town line, which includes tax map 1 lots 19, 15-A, 15, 14, 14-B, 14-A, 8, 8, and 8-A.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? This will be the second reading.
I got a question. Changing the ordinance especially for Denise as far as getting the sign. Does this bring up anything with the solar panels that can be put up in that area there? Would that have an effect in this particular ordinance?
I think the only difference is size of,
Right. I don't think there's any properties up there that would actually qualify large enough to accommodate those, is there?
I don't know. What's the size, what's the acreage that they have to have?
I don't think it's the size of the solar array that they put in, and it does have to have a certain footprint on it, and I'm not familiar with that, but I do have Gary Owen in the audience who might be able to answer that.
I'm Gary Owen, I am planning chair. As far as solar is concerned, I'm not sure, without having some time to define it or get into it, that's not what's brought before us tonight or before you folks to make those changes. The changes have to do with the sign ordinance or the signing, and that's specifically addressed in your minutes from the previous meeting, that you wanted to change that zone from mixed use, low-density residential to mixed use. I will stand up and make a comment about that. I have a couple of things I'd like to read to council if permitted. Am I-
not proper, but go ahead.
Well, okay. Reading from the comprehensive plan that we currently have, we have current land uses and issues. And those issues were addressed in the comprehensive plan. And it says, as Winslow is currently zoned, there are incompatibility issues in the mixed-use district. There is an over-reliance on this sizable district because it's the largest district in the growth area. This over-reliance essentially enables a lot of incompatible development and land uses and may have contributed to the lack of dense downtown core, which is part of the comprehensive plan goals. Traditionally, mixed-use districts were intended to promote pedestrian, bicycle traffic, reduce automobile dependency, enhance village centers, and revitalize the town's core. The intended functionality of mixed use was to allow for a variety of land uses to mix in harmony while preventing urban sprawl into the rural areas. The boundaries allowed, allowable uses, and permitting processes need to be reviewed and refined in order to improve the overall strategy. In addition to that, there are many other comments in this comprehensive plan as it results, but this is on the low-density residential district, so I will read that. The purpose of the district, low-density residential, shown in the green zoning map, is to provide for locations for new single-family residential housing in a rural setting adjacent to existing built-up areas of the town. This area was established to attract new home construction that would otherwise be in the more rural environment, yet still close to the town center. Agriculture, forestry, similar resource-based activities are encouraged. However, some commercial services are allowed as well. Any mixed uses will have to blend into the primary residential areas. Low-density residential district in the southwestern part of the growth area is in the south part of the growth area. The lot sizes are larger and transportation network is not as developed as in the previous 3 districts, which were the high density, medium, and so on. And so the lot sizes are larger, and the draw in this district should create a rural feel without developing in a rural area. As you know, as the councilors know, the board, the planning board, determined that this change ought not to pass. It was sent to you folks for consideration, and I'm standing here to encourage you to either table this or look for another option that is more reasonable than changing a district when all you're looking for is to be able to put in signs. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for that statement. And of course, Gary is chairman of the planning board, and anything that planning board sends to us, at least I'm sure everyone here takes seriously the ramifications of that zoning change. Does anybody here feel that if they do not feel comfortable with voting on this as a change, then we can vote to table it? If somebody needs any further determination, or if you want to look, Mike, at the solar situation in more detail, then,
Through the chair, I'd like to actually make sure that Denise does not get delayed for her sign. That's one of the most important things. And from the signatures that she received from the beginning, the people adjoining properties, they had no problem with it. If it was just for the sign, I'd go with it and table the rest of it, if we can get that sign passed today. But as far as the solar panels and that, yeah, I do have a concern with the solar panels, only because of the hydro that Adam was talking about. That could be, yes, and that could be dangerous. But other than that, I don't want to delay any more for Denise's sign, which I think it should be passed. I think we should pass it immediately.
Yeah, and just to finish my discussion is, I don't believe that one particular, especially the sign, should be reason alone to change a zoning. Zoning changes are extremely complicated to an extent, and the use that's there right now, it's emotional for the people that reside there. So when I looked at the whole, the area, the surrounding area and across the street, I still feel strongly that I feel comfortable, not the sign. Sign means, it's important for one individual, but we look at the whole area and the whole town, and I still feel strongly about this issue. So, and I'm going to vote in the affirmative.
If you go from Carter Drive to the Vassboro line, there are more businesses on the east side, which is part of what's in question,
Yep.
than there are on the west
Yep.
side. It's our main corridor in our town. The new comprehensive plan, I believe, has a little blurb in there that we need to look to the Augusta Road, the China Road, Benton Avenue as our places to grow. We have an opportunity to help that start now. That's all I have.
Through the chair, from what Gary just said, the main idea of this was to draw people into a more rural but not rural setting to build homes. Have we been building homes there? Does anybody know?
I think that area is actually built out.
It's built out?
I think so.
There's one new house and it's on the opposite side of the road.
So it did do what the zone was made for, which attracted people who wanted to live in that density zoning, correct?
I don't know when the zone went into effect that way, but I'm gonna say the houses on that side of the Augusta Road, going out on the left, are all old houses. The new development you've seen mostly in the last 20, 25, 30 years is on the opposite side of the road, the riverside, which is already mixed use.
When did the zone come into effect?
2008? Is
8?
that right, Gary?
I'm not sure of the exact date, but it was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Well, the 2002, 2007, 2008.
that was that comprehension plan that I gave to you.
Right.
Yeah, that included Benton Avenue.
And through the chair, I believe it, before it was low-density residential, it was industrial, so.
And it's right next to the industrial park.
And all the neighbors are in favor of this is okay? Changing the zone or allowing the sign? There's just like it's two separate things. The sign ordinance or the zoning change? So tonight, we're just talking about the zone. So those people all said it was okay for changing the zone or allowing the sign? I guess I'm confused on that.
Through the chair, I had two people that called and asked if they were going to have a McDonald's that was going to build out there. And I says, I don't believe it's going to be about McDonald's that's going to be building there. Besides, the sewage doesn't go up until as far as the industrial park. And for
Actually,
having...
it stops at Verde Drive.
Yeah, it stops at Verde Drive, so I don't think there'd be any danger of, something heavily commercial-wise, restaurant or anything else where it's gonna change to mixed use. I don't think that's an issue from the people that I've heard from, but I do have a concern as far as the solar panels. And I'd like to ask Gary, is there any consequences for changing this ordinance? I mean, as far as with the people around it?
Not until you have somebody complain.
The people that are living there now?
Or people who want to develop homes of the magnitude and character that fit into the low-density residential zone. And there are lots available over there, including the ones that you folks have specified that could be made into residential homes, or could be done that way.
These,
The idea of the comprehensive plan and putting mixed use in the business areas was just that, to keep businesses in those areas. The reason they didn't put mixed use out there where they put low-density residential was because that land, even though it once was industrial, is currently under that low-density residential, and it accommodates expansion of nice homes and that types of things. And if you continue to push with mixed use down Taylor Avenue or other areas in that area, you're going to have some people who are not going to like it. But the point is, comprehensive plan laid out a plan for this to work. And now you're going to change it based on the information that's been provided to you about a sign that won't fit on a person's business, which is allowed in that zone. That's, you know, it's up to you folks to decide what you want to do.
Any further discussion?
Wasn't there an ordinance brought to the planning board that got turned down for sign changes? To change the allowable sign size?
We haven't had a signage change.
Not since I've been on, that's,
No.
not that I recall anyway.
And Gary, just one minor thing. For a sign, for her to put a sign up, does that still have to go to the planning board for a permit, the code enforcement rather, for a permit?
You need to change the zoning, the definition of the sign to allow her to make a larger sign, if that's what she wants to do. But to change the entire district in that area, in that locale, to mixed use, because somebody wants to put a sign on a commercial business that is allowed, seems to me the opposite of what you should be doing.
Through the chair, can we make a variance for that sign?
No.
Can't.
Again, I'll stick with what I've said, is it's the main corridor in our town. The new comprehensive plan coming out says we need to look at these areas. Let's look at these
Through the
areas.
chair. Now, Gary, wasn't that once business all before?
Like I said, it was commercial or industrial at some point in time, 20 years ago, plus or minus.
These are the only places that we can have actually commercial businesses on Benton Avenue and the Augusta Road.
Well, we've got China Road.
Yeah, but you're not gonna get the storage up there. It's not gonna go past Mile Brook. What-
Make your own storage.
Yeah, well,
Same thing applies there. There's no storage available there.
no, but but in the conservation where I'm at, you can only have 3,000 square feet. And you have to have, and if you're gonna get any bigger than that, you'd have to have quite an elaborate septic system. So it's not feasible or really to be building on the China Road where there's no septic system. Yeah.
I've stated what my thoughts are. I'm not going to argue.
Oh, I'm not arguing, sir. I'm just,
Very well, thank you.
Any further comments? Discussion? Roll call?
Fran Hudson,
Yeah. What am I voting? Can we read the vote before? Are we
This
voting?
is, yep, you guys didn't make any amendments, so it's the amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone a portion of the low-density residential district to mixed-use district. Fran
Yes,
Hudson.
yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Adam Lent.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Mike Joseph.
yes.
And Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Ordinance number 5-2024 to repeal Chapter 2 Administration, Article XX, Billing Services, subsections 286 to 290 of the town ordinances currently listed as Chapter 128, Emergency Service Fees, subsection 128-1 through 128-5 of the town code, amending in its entirety September 9th, 2019 by ordinance number 9-2019.
Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? And this is also the second reading, I believe.
Correct.
Seeing none? Roll call?
This is a roll call to repeal the billing services of the emergency service fees. Ray Karen.
Yes.
Adam Lent.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Mike Joseph.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
And Fran Hudson.
Yes.
This passes 6-0. Order number 7-2024, authorization for the Public Works Director to purchase a stationary generator for the China Road Pump Station from the capital sewer account with the cost not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Paul, is Paul here today?
He's hiding.
And basically, just for explanation, it's just right now when we have a power outage, the truck is up there all the time, just trying to keep the level,
Correct.
and this would enhance the pumping into the system, so.
China Road has a very high flow because a lot of it comes out of Loman, Elanco, whatever you want to call it today. Because they're all on generators, so they
Yep.
don't stop. So we spent 50 grand at the last storm, so it'll pay for the generator.
Sounds good, thank you.
Anything further? Roll call, please.
This is a roll call for authorization for the Public Works Director to purchase a stationary generator for the China Road Pump Station, not to exceed $50,000. Adam Lent,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph.
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
This passes 6-0.
Excuse me, Tanya. Could you bring your mic closer to your... Thank you.
Bear with me, everybody, please. All right, on to new business. Ordinance number 7-2024, providing for an amendment to ordinance number 10-2023, personnel rules and regulations for town employees, amending various sections by adding the underline and deleting the strike-through language in the attached document.
So moved.
Okay, this will be a public hearing.
Yes, that's a public hearing.
Anybody want to speak on this?
I'm a little confused. What is it? What is-
Yeah, maybe Ella can give us.
Just to clarify, Fran, thank you for asking. We had changed the personnel policy so that we eliminated the time off towards the end of the week, and we're finding that we're still closing the town office a little bit more than what we should. And so we're looking at adding Mondays to a floating holiday to our staff in the administration office, so we can keep the office open. This is something that was brought up by Katie and Taya. The two of them worked through it, and I think it's a good idea.
So that means you're going to limit the amount of times that you're you're only
Closed,
open
right.
3 days a week, right?
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to stay open and have the floating holidays.
And that's all this is on?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Ella, if I may, because there are another 25 changes, 20, maybe not that many to this, but they're all boilerplate, bringing up to date things,
Yes.
changing a dollar amount here or there.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
changing a date here or there.
Yes.
Or longevity, it's all just trying to bring things into the current world.
And Tanya, being the human resource director, she kind of spearheaded those changes and stuff, and we've all looked them over.
We can go over all 20 of them, but I really don't think it's necessary.
There's only one,
That's up to you
It's
guys.
just boilerplate stuff.
only one that I saw in there that I was wondering about, and is if we could keep the weather closing on the radio also with keeping it on the Facebook page. And we were covering two birds with one stone.
Right.
That way people are listening to the radio and they can hear what's going on versus,
So what we decided to eliminate that on the
So
radio,
currently,
correct?
right now, we do Channel 5 and Channel 2 news, and then we also post on our Facebook and website. I was asked if we could just leave it to Facebook and website. So
And the
that's what
reason
I
is-
put in there, but if you guys want it to go back, it's completely up to you.
Because everybody's reading Facebook and the webpage, but not everybody's listening to the Channel 5 and Channel 2 or whatever they are. And,
Well, a lot of people don't go on the internet at all, though.
Say that
I said a
again.
lot of people don't go on social media either.
the older generation. I was just thinking if the cost is minimal, we might as well.
Well, there's no cost involved, right?
Nope.
No, it's a free service.
To me, sounds like a good idea, but
To continue it, I think.
continue using it, but.
Why do we choose just Channel 5 only? If it's for nothing, why don't we go to all the networks or?
Well, I think it becomes a laborious type thing. You have to contact them all.
We
And,
have a username and password that you have to be able to sign on with them. They assign it to us, but
I think, isn't it? Oh, that's out of town anyway, okay. Channel 5 isn't on, Fairfield doesn't get Channel 5. That's out of town for you.
I mean, we can certainly
Yeah,
add that back in. It was just an internal discussion, and there's the amount of people that actually listen to it on the radio is probably, that's antiquated. And the webpage and the social media page seems to be where it's getting all the action. And plus it spreads word of mouth as well.
If it doesn't cost anything, I don't see the harm, honestly.
We can make that change.
Just leave it on the 2 news stations.
And the Facebook page works, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to,
Yep. Thank
it's
you.
not taken
We
off.
added the Facebook page.
I like that idea.
Through the chair, I got a question. I've had some people ask me, saying, we're open only 4 days a week. I've had people say it's been very inconvenient for not being open on Fridays. I don't know if this is part of, that we can discuss about this, but I've had several people ask me about, because a lot of people do their business on Fridays and we're closed. And I don't know if we have to revisit that, and I'm not sure where we need to go with this, but I had to bring it up because some people had asked me about it.
Did we do that as an ordinance change,
No, it's personnel policy change.
Which is an ordinance.
which is an ordinance?
Uh-huh.
So we'd have to bring that back to the table, Mike?
Okay, so can we bring that up to the table?
Why don't we
Just
put
put
it
it
on
on the
next month
next
for
Through the chair, I'm
discussion?
just gonna address
Yeah,
it real
you-
quick.
Yeah.
If I can. So most of your towns are going to this, and the reason is because of employee retention and attraction. You're having a hard time finding people willing to do this kind of work. The other thing, what it does for it, is it extends the hours of operation on those 4 days. We're actually open until 6 o'clock, whereas typically we're closing at 4:30. Between 4:30 and 6 is some of our busiest time. That's when people are coming in, they're getting out of work, and they have the opportunity to get their cars registered and stuff. So if we go back to the 5-day-a-week, then we've got better than banker hours. 8:30 in the morning to 4:30 at night. It's the same thing that was happening in the last town that I worked on. And we changed those hours and increased the foot traffic coming into the town office. You know, younger people, and all of them actually are looking for a 4-day work week everywhere. And that's where it's going on municipal work.
Through the chair. I don't think he's saying, no, don't work 4 days. I think he's saying, stay open on Fridays. Most people get paid on Fridays, so
Right.
they want to do their business on
That would
Fridays.
mean
right.
additional
So just
staffing,
change,
too. We'd
no,
have to-
change the day of the week that you close, that's all.
Close Monday, maybe.
Close a Monday or a Wednesday or a Tuesday, not a Friday.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
We can leave this for another day.
Let's put it on as, if I through the chair, let's put it on as discussion item for the
next
next
month?
meeting, and then
Yeah,
we can
okay, let's do that.
debate the pros and cons, and then
Actually,
see
our
how
next
we
meeting's
want
only
to.
2 weeks anyway.
Yeah, so,
Well, don't we have one next Monday?
Next week.
We have one next week.
Next week, sorry.
Next week?
Yes, next week.
so we'll have to put it on as a discussion item.
Okay.
Through the chair, I do have another question. It seems we do have some on these. On the 6% charge,
We're gonna be talking about that in an upcoming.
but to approve this, we'd have to change it here, wouldn't we? Because you got 6% on all of these.
That's gonna be in order number 8-2024. We're gonna be talking about that.
Okay, so we're not going to rule on doing your changes. We're not voting on that then? Because your changes include a 6% interest rate.
No, it doesn't. That's on the personnel policy.
Personnel policy is just
Okay.
you're doing our inclement, our holidays, our vacation, our sick.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
And I'm doing this roll call also to include the amendment back to section 5, subsection 5.7 of inclement weather to keep the news stations.
Well, we have to move to amend if you're gonna put that.
Okay.
in there. I
Yeah.
move to amend that
Thank
section
you.
of the policy.
Thank
Which
you.
section is it?
5-.
It's section 5, subsection 5.7 of inclement weather.
Okay, I move to amend the personnel policy, that subsection that Tanya just wrote, to keep included the notice on, with the news media.
Second.
So, yep, go ahead. So,
All right.
So do a roll call on the amendment. All right, any discussion?
Any discussion on that?
Then a roll call on the
Amendment.
amendment.
Let a roll call on that, on the amendment.
So roll call, Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes,
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Adam Lint,
Yes.
and Lee is absent.
and the roll call on as amended.
And a roll call as amended for ordinance number 7 for personnel rules and regulations for the town employees to include the amendment of section 5, subsection 5.7 for inclement weather to keep the news stations as amended. Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes,
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
and Adam Lint.
Yes.
Lee is absent. And that passes 6-0. On to ordinance number 8, 2024, approval of the Town of Winslow 2024 to 2025 fiscal budget series in the amount of $33,573,893.67, and to establish a tax due date and interest rate on taxes remaining unpaid.
This will also be a public hearing?
now we're gonna move and second it first, yeah.
No.
Yep.
So moved.
Second?
Anybody from the public want to speak on this? Being none, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion.
Through the chair, I want to move to lowering that interest rate on the late payments for property taxes back to 2% at a time, like I've said before, where the taxpayers have already been heavily burdened with a tax increase. The state allows up to, well, now it's at 8.50, but it was at 8%. The state only allows you to collect 8% interest on late payments. And we were charging, or we are charging 8%. So my question is, why would you charge such a large amount at a time when people are having such a hard time with the increase to begin with? So I'm asking for this year, in consideration of all the people of Winslow, that we lower that interest rate to 2%, because you're asking the older generation and all people of Winslow to make a significant change in planning on how to pay their taxes. So I will ask again. I know we voted on it in a straw poll, and you all agreed at 3%. Well, not all, but the 3 opposing the 2 agreed to 3. So I'm going to ask again that we vote on the 2% for the people.
Now, if I remember correctly, wasn't it 6% with a 10-day grace period?
That's
No,
what,
That's
that's what we
what
have
she
built in
wanted.
there.
It's in there.
That's what she wanted, but it was 8%.
It was brought up for 2%, and then Ray said that he would consider that at the time when we talked about it. But then there was some things of conservation, not conservation, but when there was a conversation about what we were going to do, whether we were going to go to 2 or 4, at least go 4, you know, and have that 10-day grace period besides. If we can't do 2, why don't we go meet halfway and go
True.
6? I mean, 4.
And through the chair, at that meeting when we were speaking, you suggested and directed Ella as a worst-case scenario to place it on the budget, in her budget, at 2% as a worst-case scenario. Yes, he did.
Who did?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
No question, I'm not,
No.
yeah, I
So-
also said
but
that I'm not supporting a 2%.
Okay.
I said I would support a 3%,
Right.
and that's what I said, and that's where I am right now, at 3%. So I would support a 3%.
Okay, I'll go with that.
That's what,
I also would go with the 3%.
Yep.
So through the chair, real quick, we went from 8 down to 6. And by building in this 10-day grace period at Chairman Jeff's recommendation, this takes care of the majority of the residents who have late payments. The concern that we have, and I think Caitlin did a really good job at the last budget meeting to express this, is the majority of these late fees are actually coming from commercial businesses. And by lowering our interest rates down to 2 or 3%, it allows them to not pay their property taxes and go out and borrow money and actually make money on that money. So the majority of the towns don't follow this path. And the goal is, because what happens is if you take that, we got $30,000 in revenue for the year that the town actually collects on this, and this is part of the financial package that we deal with. And by removing that revenue, other people who are actually paying their taxes on time are paying the price for that, because that actually, our budget is cut so tight right now. We're at 14.99 mils. Last year was 15. That 30,000 is actually enough to bring our taxes up a tick. And that's my concern, because I've been making a promise all the way through this process that we weren't going to see a tax increase, and everything is a click at a time. So this was the first click in the process, and that's my concern with this, is losing the $30,000 revenue. And Fran, I hear what you're saying about the tax increases with people. I get it. You know, every town in this whole region is going through this right now, and our turn came, and it's tough. I'm going to be going through it myself over in Fairfield. So, but we have to look at the big picture here, and that's everybody who lives within the town.
Through the chair, I understand, and thank you very much, Ella, but I'm not real concerned about other towns right now. I'm just concerned about this one. And I know you hold us to other towns with everything you say, but my focus is right here, right now. 30,000 to me is a drop in the budget, is a drop in the bucket to raising the mill rate. If it's that tight and that close, maybe we need to make cuts somewhere else, because this is, you're not going to lose the whole 30. Even if you get the 3%, you're still going to bring in some money. So you're not losing the entire amount. It's not going to raise that mill rate. And I'm just going to stick. I will go with the 3%.
Okay. I think, obviously, $1 increase in taxes or increase in the budget is important as anything when we're dealing with the budget for the last 3 months. I will say this is normally we underestimate revenues and the potential for revenues. So I believe that the revenues and the anticipated revenues, the anticipated gain in revenues will offset this amount of money 20 times over, which is normally what happens in a budget. So I'm not concerned about raising the mill rate. I'm very concerned about raising the mill rate. But I don't think this particular going from 6 to 3% is going to raise the mill rate just because we underestimate revenues every year. So
we have a
Chairman?
motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the reasons why we have to have interest rates on these late payments is so we have money coming in and an incentive for people to pay their taxes on time. If we lower this rate below what the going rate for a CD is, which right now you can get a CD for 4 or 5%, these people that pay and pay up front and pay on time have no incentive to pay on time anymore. They just soon leave their money in a CD for 6 months, get the 4 or 5% interest on it, and pay the 3% late fee. That's what's going to happen. I'm convinced of that. A lot of people that pay their full taxes up front, and there's a lot of them in this town.
Can we give them a tax break then for paying early and on time?
It's the same thing. You give them a tax break, you're still losing money.
It's punishment then, either way.
You're losing money.
Well, then
If you give them a
we keep the
credit.
late payment a little higher and then give them an incentive to pay earlier.
That's
Then-
what the purpose of the interest rate is. You keep the interest rate high enough to give the incentive for people to pay their taxes.
They
And
used to
if
give
you
taxes early.
reduce that below what they can get on an investment, on a typical CD right now, they don't have the incentive to pay their taxes on time, which means we're gonna get a lot of less money coming in our October payment. First payment's usually due in October. And rather than getting what we normally get in, which I don't know what that figure is, but I'm gonna bet you that number is gonna be a lot lower if we lower that interest rate below 5 or 6%. Because people will leave the money in the bank and pay the late fee because they're making more money with it in the bank. And that's the incentive, and it has to be the incentive. And our payments are gonna come in so much later. And we've gotta pay the bills with this money. And the amount of money you're talking about, going from 6% to 3%, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 a year, if they don't pay until the very last day of the year. That's all it is. We're not talking saving these people a lot of money.
Then why do we charge it if it's not a big deal? What's
So
the
that they
big
pay-
argument?
So that they pay, so we have the money in the bank account to pay the bills.
My point for this year only, I'm speaking, is people don't have the money. So you're gonna take what they don't have and then take more if they don't have it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, in consideration for just this year, let's give something back and just lower this to 3.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second?
Well, the motion right now
Yeah, I
is for
think-
2%. Fran made the first motion at 2%.
Yeah?
So you're gonna rescind that and go to 3%?
I'll go to 3%.
Do we have a
You gotta make the
second?
motion again.
I'll
I'll
second
sec-
it.
Roll call
On the amendment.
on the amendment for the budget for 3% of an interest rate, would that be the only change on the whole budget?
Does that include the 10-day grace period?
This does include the 10-day grace period in the budget order.
And we don't, we don't want to talk about doing any early incentive for people that pay taxes on time or anything like that.
So we gotta vote on the first
We gotta
amendment.
vote on the
Okay.
First Amendment first.
Someone said that if there were any other amendments, so I'll do it after.
Jeff West,
No.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
No.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lint,
Yes.
amendment,
That's 3, right?
that is 4-3, 4-2, sorry.
4-2, okay. Okay, yep.
Any other discussions?
I wouldn't hurt my feelings to see people get rewarded for paying their taxes on time if we're going to penalize people for being late. And
They did it years ago.
They used
When I
to.
first bought my house, they did that.
And they're slowly moving back and forth with doing it, and, you know, it's just a small way of giving back to the community. I think that, like, if you're gonna give them a consequence for doing something, you give them a reward for doing something, they're less likely to do, you know, bad things or be late on payments or something. The whole world now just wants to reprimand you for something instead of giving you an incentive to do something right, so I think wouldn't hurt anything. I mean, even if you wanted to set a certain dollar amount versus a percentage, you know, just to say thank you to the people that came in and made life easier instead of having to chase them down and go through all the other hassles of it.
If I may, through the chair, I think, you know, that's a great discussion to have. On the first reading of the budget, it's kind of a late discussion to have when we're trying to vote on the budget and trying to get a mill rate as close to 0 as possible. So, and that's a whole discussion and, you know, calculating and how that's gonna, you know, how much it's gonna be for a deduction is, so I would like to go out to other towns and see what other towns do for these things and let Ella do that type of research. So, I'm not in favor of it, but I think at this late hour, I think that's a discussion that we can have for during this year, for next year. I think we should take a look at what the 6% to 3% is going to do for us, and see if we lose a lot. And then during the year, we can have that discussion next year about incentives for paying your taxes early.
I had brought it up during the budget meeting, but
Did you?
it never ended up
Yeah,
going anywhere,
right,
so
right.
we can hold off on that.
That's just my suggestion, Adam.
Yeah,
Hey,
'cause it's just
if you
gonna-
want to bring it up for a discussion item next meeting, then we can put that as a discussion item, but.
Through the chair. So I did research that, Adam, when you talked about it. And the response that I got back from other town managers is this is a budgeting nightmare because it's impossible to predict how much money you're gonna be paying out for that. So it just makes it more difficult. Most towns have gotten right away from that, just like Winslow did.
Thank you. At least we got it down to 3%.
So there is a motion. Do you want to rescind your motion?
Sure.
Any other discussion on the budget?
The only thing I have, Ella, will you have, for the second reading next week, the difference in that going down to 3%, what effect that's gonna have on the revenue?
We'll have to recalculate that. It'll be an estimate.
Any other discussions on the budget? The silence tells me no. How about a roll call, please?
Okay, so roll call as amended for order number 8, 2024, the approval of the Winslow fiscal year budget of $33,573,893.67 with a motion, with a change of 3% interest rate. Jeff West.
Before a point of order, Mr. Chairman. Ella, we got some emails today from Katie. Did that number change from that email we gave to Katie? She sent to us this afternoon?
I'm sorry, which number?
The number
I'm reading off is your updated one from Katie.
that's the updated one from this afternoon?
And that's what's in your, that's what's in your budget.
Yes, that's the update that I sent out earlier.
Okay, just want to make sure, that's all. Yeah.
Is this also, through the chair, is this also including the education part of it? It is?
Yes.
I have a couple questions for Peter on the education before we approve this.
So if we approve this, this is approving the school budget as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, the
Yes,
school budget
we
goes.
don't approve the school budget.
Right.
We approve what's being sent to the voters.
Right. So
So
we
that's
could-
what we'd be approving.
Oh, okay.
The budget.
Mike?
Okay, through the
Mike,
chair, I
please.
have a question for you, Peter. You know, you were talking about new teachers, and we were talking, 4 positions? Could you, now, you're saying one of them was it an Ed Tech 3, in case one of the students or if a student said they needed some time off, they went to this particular teacher or Ed Tech, is that correct?
I actually have building administrators here, not specifically about that position. Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about the new Ed Tech that would be like
We had one at the high school, Mike,
Right.
and we had one at the elementary school.
Yeah, the one at the elementary school, I believe, and the one at the high school. I'd like to have that explained to me a little bit clearer.
Sure. Is Erica here?
She is.
She is.
She's hiding in the corner.
That was for the 3%.
Yes. Okay, right.
Right?
Good evening. So I'm not sure, I did ask for 2 positions. I'm not sure which one you have questions about.
Both of them.
Okay. So one of the positions is a position called the Student Support Specialist position, which in just a second you'll hear from Chad is the same name, but a different sort of job description. The Student Support Specialist at the elementary school is a position that we've had for the last 2 years that was funded through our CARES COVID funds. It is an intervention position that is designed to support students with, I'm going to use the word lower level regulation issues or behaviors. And the reason I'll use lower level because the next position I'll talk about is sort of larger behaviors. Supports those students by developing plans to help them be successful in the classroom with a variety of things. Oftentimes there's a check-in, check-out system where they have a person that they check in with in the morning. They have particular goals that they're working on throughout the day. And then they, as they go throughout their day, they have a chart to kind of keep track of how their day is going. So that student support specialist right now, I believe, works with approximately, I think it's 34 or 36 students at this point in time across our entire building. And each kid's plan looks a little bit different depending upon what their needs are. One of the things that we've seen in the last few years is an increase in students difficulty regulating their behaviors and being able to be present fully as students. So this is an intervention, a teacher-level position that provides intervention, just as we have through our title program for academic interventions. So that's that position.
Could I stop you right there
Yeah,
for just
sorry.
1 second? Do you have the PowerPoint that we sent to you the other day with all of the data that we have on this? We showed you all of that information, the number of incidences and occurrences and the rationale for that
Right.
position, and how the disruption, if you don't have that position, impacts other classrooms. So that's important for you to see, to bring back to your memory.
Okay, the question is that, I know if they feel like they need a timeout or break, you mentioned the last time, they go see this person here, right? What is it, I mean, why can't we have like a classroom management of the teachers that, that explains to the classroom in the beginning of the year and what their expectations from the student are. And then from there, I think they'd have much more of a chance for the respect of that teacher. And then when you have respect, of course, you're going to be able to teach them. When you lose the discipline, I think you lose the respect. So, why don't we try something like, I know it can be a school suspension, being with the principal or whoever is, and give them work for the whole day. I can't see having to hire a person just because I think the students, and I believe it's happening in Waterville right now because they have something similar to this, the students get really wise to this and say, well, I don't feel like being in this class today. And off they go. So they don't even have to take the class or have that time off from it. I know the kids are not stupid. They'll figure it out. I have a hard time putting this position in play and thinking that if we use a little bit more discipline, and I should say classroom management, I think would be a lot better off than having hired this new position.
So let me talk a little bit about what we do currently have in place. So we have a program, a system called Responsive Classroom that is in our entire building. In the beginning of the year, part of this is the students coming together as a classroom to develop what are the expectations that we all agree upon. And oftentimes those are steered in terms of, making sure there are some general things that all classrooms have. As a school, we have a behavior matrix that is literally every hallway we walk in, there's a big, huge matrix. And it outlines respectful, responsible, safe behavior and what are the expectations in the variety of locations in the building. So in terms of making sure that we are doing that up front, we absolutely are doing it up front. I can tell you that even with those systems in place, we have seen a significant change in students to the point that the two positions that I'm asking for are absolutely necessary in order for us to be able to educate not only those students, but the other students that are there. And so it's, as I talked about, we have interventions for math and for reading. This particular person would provide interventions for those students struggling to regulate their behavior.
So what did we do before COVID, before this program actually started, when it was funded through COVID, if I'm not mistaken? What did we do before that?
So I will tell you that the students have changed over the last few years, and the amount of students and the significant dysregulation that they have has increased substantially. So to answer your question, we didn't see the same amount, and we didn't see it to the same level that we did.
And how many more students do we have now opposing to before 2020?
So it's a little bit tricky to answer that because we didn't have
Percentage-wise.
sixth grade in our building. So our numbers have increased by well over 100 in the building because we didn't have sixth grade in there. And they have increased, I believe, approximately, I don't have my numbers in front of me for tonight, but by 40 to 60 students over the last few years. We have, had an increase in students in general, and then with the addition of sixth grade in our building.
Okay.
Through the,
If I may, through the chair, Adam and I went to, obviously you gave us a great tour, we saw in action that program, and we saw incidences while we were there, that how this program was beneficial. Beneficial not only for the teacher, who can concentrate on the pupils that are there without having to put 90% and 30% of the pupils that really need that special care during certain segments of their learning process during the week or during the month or during the day. So I feel that this is, it helps the teachers being able to teach the rest of the pupils, and it helps that individual, remove him. He gets the education in that system and is returned, if I'm wrong, let me know, as soon as possible to the regular classroom
Yes.
for readmittance, and there's a reward service there. So it doesn't just benefit the children that are having problems, but the children that aren't having problems, so they can learn. And I think it's we talked about standardized testing and the scores over the past 10 years of standardized testing. This is a program that was put in place, in my opinion, to make sure that every student in the elementary and the high school get the attention that they need for educational, for the teachers, not only for the students, but to retain the teachers and give them a tool so that they can teach and do what they're supposed to do in the school. So
Yes, that's very accurate. So just, thank you, Peter, for handing me some of the numbers. So just some numbers, for last year, our student support specialists supported 30 different students. They did 1,218 formal check-in and check-outs. They did 74 informal check-ins. They did 2,392 positive earned breaks. They did 370 breaks to stop escalation. So when kids were starting to get even more escalated, they were able to intervene at a point where that did not escalate. They provided 1,729 skill building opportunities with students. And just for the first 4 months when these numbers were put together, they supported 37 students, had already done 325 check-in, check-outs, 37 informal check-ins, 1,669 positive earned breaks, 720 breaks to stop escalation. I'm going to just stop there for a minute because last year there were 370 breaks to stop escalation. In the first 4 months of this school year, there were 720 breaks to stop escalation. So, I think that is evidence that the intervention is working to help so that we're not getting to a point where these students are reaching the office level that we'll talk about next. So.
Through the chair, is this with one ed tech or is this with?
This is for,
with all?
this position is a teacher contracted position, and it is one, yes.
One person that does all of this?
Yes.
And what did we have before? We didn't have anybody?
Before, right, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, these behaviors you're talking about are not the behaviors you're already getting state funded to have people working with. This clientele, you're just talking about kids
Right.
who have no set behaviors. They're just kids who don't want to stay in class.
These are students who are not in special education.
Right.
And are struggling with the skills necessary to be able to be present and do what a student needs to do.
But you have, don't you have, I'm so sorry, is it IP or, the program that used to set these
IEPs,
kids'
yes,
behavior?
that's special education.
Right, so you already have that.
Yes, there are students who have IEPs. And
These kids don't fall under that, though?
No.
No.
Sometimes this is the intervention that we try so that students don't necessarily have to get to the IEP. Just again, I kind of referring back to our academic. We're required by law to do interventions before students get referred to special education in academics and behavior. And so just like we do for academics, we provide a certain level of intervention in hopes that that level of intervention scoops kids up enough that they then don't need a higher level of support, which of course costs more money. So we hope by providing this level of intervention that not only will kids be successful and be present, and as Ray said, will not disrupt the learning of others, but that it won't progress that difficulty that they're having, that they'll get the skills that they need.
So are they learning disabled? Are they behavior? There's a difference. I mean, just because they can't pass English doesn't mean they need a special program.
No, these are students who are struggling with regulation, and, you know, you might look at that as behavior, but really oftentimes it's, you know, kids who are struggling with, you know, attending to what's going on in the classroom. There might be other factors that they are struggling to do the things we would expect students to do, but they're not at the level at this point that they would be referred for special education.
And I'm so sorry, please don't take it as disrespect. I have a daughter-in-law who's a teacher. So these are just kids
Yes.
that don't want to do well in school.
I would say it's not that they don't want to do well. I would say that often these kids have what we call skill gaps. So there are skills that they don't have for a variety of reasons, that we hope that providing this intervention will give them that skill. But they are more frequently typical kids now than we would have seen, you know, before 2020.
And this is an added program to all the lists that I saw on your presentation and of programs you already have for every issue you have with children in school.
It's not an added program, it's an added individual to provide support to students who come to school dysregulated for a number of reasons. Could be anxiety, could be something happening
You have
at
state
home.
money for that though, Pete.
Excuse me?
You have state funds
No,
for
I don't have
English.
state
You got
funds for
ADA,
anxiety.
you had the whole
I don't
list of
have
them.
state funds for anxiety, Fran.
Well, I saw a
have
list.
state funds for students who receive special education support, who need to be tested in order to qualify. Those students, we have some funds for. These students, we don't. These students are kids that if we don't provide them with the extra support, are gonna end up in the assistant principal's office, and they're gonna end up getting sent home because nobody's working with them. The schools are the end-all, be-all to help kids succeed. So if we don't provide them with the support, they don't get it. They go home at times to places that there's no support. We are the end-all, be-all, and we have a responsibility to help those kids develop the skills that they need to succeed. If you look at the data that she has on her charts, you'll see the decline in the referrals that were made. That data tells you that it's working. The kids are staying in school. They're there. They're making it. Take away the supports. Take away the additional supports for our kids. You're not gonna see the successes that we have. It's not gonna happen.
Are we
We're no
addressing,
different than any other school district. Let me remind you of that as well. Dysregulated kids are everywhere. You look at different school districts, they're looking for the same things. Everybody's looking for more social workers, more guidance counselors. We're not asking you for that. We're asking you for somebody who can work with these kids and have a plan. That's what we're looking at. It's a cost savings measure to go this way, on many fronts.
I think what you're looking at too is we're talking about the kids that need this special help, which is totally important. But the teachers, it gives them a tool to help the kids that are in there for learning. How many times I've been in the classroom where the teacher, and again, I hate to say it, spends 70% of her time trying to do discipline, trying to get behavior modification in there. And the kids that want to learn, that 70% that are there that want to learn, aren't getting the attention that they need. And that's a disservice to them also, and it's a disservice to the 30% that need the help if we don't have this program, these two people. And it's a disservice to the 70% of the people that would be short, I don't know, not get the adequate attention they need from the teachers to fulfill all their potentials in school.
It's a tough spot to be in, to sit up here, to try to represent the people and not get the school board upset with some who may not agree with what you're asking for. But there comes a time when you need to take a step back and really think about the people. The school is a great school. You said it yourself. It's been great right up to this point. And I think it's going to continue to be great. My boys graduated from there years ago. I know it's a good school system, but when I'm standing up here saying you've already got a principal, a vice principal, counselors, nurse. You've got all these people in place, and then to ask for not just this one position, but you're asking for 4 more. That's an increase. That's a lot of money you're asking taxpayers to pay for. And yes, it's tough to say. We love our kids. We want the best education. We don't want to keep them from what they need. But we have to worry about the people in this town keeping their homes and making sure they can afford to pay the taxes that keep the school running. So sometimes it's hard. It really is hard
I don't
for
disagree
you
with-
and for us.
I don't disagree with any of that, Fran, and I have said that we have been fiscally responsible bringing you a budget. We bring you a budget that is based on our needs, based on our goals, based on our data, based on what we see our needs for our kids. And you are 100% right. You do represent the people. We have 1,100 kids. We have 2,200 parents who are your people, who live in this community because strong schools make strong communities. You start eroding your school district, you start eroding your community.
I agree with you as well. I do. Sometimes tough, and when it comes to budgets, tough for everybody to make decisions.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman? Yep. I can't sit here and profess that I know what you teachers go through. I think I have 2 sisters and a brother who were teachers. And they mention things, but I can't sit here and say, okay, Peter, and you folks you need these positions. I'm assuming you were all hired because of your expertise and your dedication to education. And I can't sit up here and substitute my own personal opinion for your professional opinions, because I don't know. Ray sees the schools a lot more than I do. He sees the hands-on experience and what your teachers go through. And I've heard a lot of stories from my brothers and sisters of what they go through. And we have to leave those decisions up to you folks that work within those school buildings. The other professionals, I'm not. I certainly am not. And when you rattle off numbers like you just did, I might not know what those numbers mean, but I know they're substantial numbers. And if that's the situation we're in with some kids in our school system, then we have to do something about it. And if you, as the professionals, decided that this is the way you have to go to solve those problems, then I'm not going to sit here and vote against it, because I'm not smart enough. I don't know what you're going through. You folks are. And this is the 3rd budget that I've been on where we've had to look at the school budget. And to be honest with you, Peter, I think this is about the worst one you've had as far as compared to the year before. And your budgets have always been good. I think you came under budget 3 years ago from the prior year. Last year was a minor increase. And this year's increase in your budget, I still consider that a minor increase on a $30 million budget for this town. And your budget, as well as Ella's budget, fit in with no tax increase this year to the citizens of this town. And we all know that to increase the tax base in this town, we need residential development, as well as business, of course. If our schools start getting a reputation that they're not very good, what's that gonna do to residential development in this town? It's not gonna help out any. So that's gonna have a drastic effect on our tax base without an exceptional school system. And I think that's what we have here right now, and that's what we should continue with. And I would propose we pass this budget as presented to us by Ella.
I just want to add that there's $950,000 out of the fund balance that went in here to keep the budget the way it is without a mill increase. So that's still almost $1 million worth of taxpayers' money and interest and stuff that we've put into it to maintain this. So next year, we're going to have the same issue. If we don't cut something to make something go down a little bit, we're going to end up either bleeding ourselves dry or we're going to have another giant tax increase here pretty soon, or a higher mill rate.
Well, if you want to cut. We went through 3 days of budget workshops. And there wasn't one thing proposed to be cut at that time outside of the interest rate. Nothing. What do you propose cutting? 3 positions? You wanna cut bus routes? You wanna cut trash pickup? What do you wanna cut? I haven't yet heard outside of the 2% interest.
We could start with a
They
skid
wanted to cut
steer
something
from the
that
town
counts.
from the town public works, their machinery. Police car was suggested and that was shot down. I mean, if we could figure out a way to drop the school budget $50,000 to $100,000, we drop $200,000 from the town budget. I mean, we're down to $550,000 that's coming out of the fund balance, which makes it a lot easier to work with and knock that down a little bit next year, but.
Make your proposals, we'll vote on it.
Here's, if I, through the chair again, we're at the, we're at the last kind of stage of this budget. We've had 2.5 months to really look at the budget, to make cuts that we want to. I says, these are all things that are interesting, and, right now we have a flat mill rate. I think that's good for this particular year, is to keep it flat. If anybody has like a question about a program, then I would suggest that before you make a decision on cutting, that you go into the school system, you look at the program, you look at the kids, and you observe what's happening there before I would cut anything. Before I would cut mowing or something, I would make sure that I talked to the people and had an in-depth discussion about cutting stuff. Because what we're talking about cutting here in the school department has great ramifications with the teachers, and I don't believe that we should, at this time, cut those type of individuals at this time of the process without adequately for everybody to look at those programs, go and observe those programs, and make sure that if we do cut, that you're sure that those are the right things to do.
Through the chair, I have a question with Joella. How many bonds do we have right now that we're paying on?
We're paying on a share of them. You're talking just the municipality? The
Yes,
town.
yes.
Let's see if I can find that page for you, Mike.
To my knowledge, Mike, we have quite a few bonds, but the ones that are maturing, I think we have 2 bonds in the next 4 years that are maturing that should be able to put back into roughly around, and Elle will give us the exact number, probably around $500,000. So back
on
into,
two?
once they're paid off. Ella will give us, but I
Okay.
believe when I looked at it this morning,
Yeah, it's
that it was about that.
$483,534, but we're gonna be looking at the Chafee Book Bond, which is gonna be for the sewer department, it's gonna be $436,67, but that's just the sewer department. We've got 1, 2,
And when's that bond due?
which
The end
one?
of that bond, for the surge,
That's gonna start in 2026.
2026 to when?
Oh, I've got it up, it's a 30-year bond.
30-year bond? What's the other one? What's the other bond?
Now, we've got a RDA loan, that's a sewer bond itself, that's 66,358, that ends in 2051. We've got a 2017 bond for 224, that ends in 2028. And we have bonded out a fire truck, our ladder, at $129,000 a year, and that ends in 2030.
Do you have a total of everything that we have there?
We're paying $483,534, although I pulled the fire truck, the new pumper out, because my plan is to pay cash for that, so I removed $134,127. I'm actually putting that into a savings account to start accumulating money so we don't have to bond that. Or if we do bond it, it's gonna be at the very small amount,
So that's at 130,000?
134.
Okay.
Mike, do you have any further questions?
I don't think I have any more questions.
Anybody else have any further questions for either?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussions? If none, roll call, please.
Okay, we're going back to the roll call as amended. This is for Order 8, 2024, for the 2024-2025 fiscal year series budget, $33,573,893.67 with a 3% interest rate. Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
No.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
and Adam Lynn.
No.
It passes 4-2, one absent.
And I believe it's next Monday?
Correct, this
We
is
will
the,
have
this is the
second
first
reading
reading,
on
the
the
second
budget?
reading, yes. On to resolution number 12-2024, providing authorization for the town manager to proclaim May 5th through May 12th Professional Municipal Clerks Week.
Would you like me to read this?
So
resolution?
moved.
Go ahead, Ella.
I need a
Would you like me
second.
to read
You
this?
move it first, yeah.
Second.
Yep. First and second. Discussion.
Proclamation, 55th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May 5th to May 11th, 2024. Whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, time-honored, vital part of local governments, exists throughout the world. And whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of the neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. And whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk. Now therefore, I, Ella Michaela Bowman, Town Manager for the Town of Winslow, do authorize the week of May 5th through May 11th, 2024, as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to Audra Fleury and to all professional municipal clerks for vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Dated this 22nd day of April, 2024.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Jeff West,
Yes.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
and Adam Lynn.
Yes.
Resolution passes 6-0, one absent. On to Resolution 13-2024, the approval of the attached list of election clerks to assist the town clerk and warden with voting activities for the upcoming state and municipal elections.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion? We'll take a roll call, please.
Mike Joseph,
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Fran Hudson,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Adam Lynn,
Yes.
and Jeff West.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0, one absent. On to discussion items. We have the Spirit of America nominations.
Through the chair, if you have somebody in mind who you'd like to nominate that, if you could just send me an email, and then I will generate a list so you can vote on who you'd like to nominate. Instead of making this public now, we'd like to make it a surprise for the person that you pick.
Through, through the chair, if I might, I think that, not just us, but anybody in the public that has a name.
Right.
That, and could you go over what some of the criteria?
I don't have that. It's a volunteer mechanism to recognize those in the community who may have done something above and beyond to help the community out in a charitable way. So if somebody has a name, certainly send it on to me so that we can let the council vote on it. And we'll probably vote in secret so that it will be a surprise for the person.
Thank you.
We have KV Cap housing options.
Was that just a placeholder?
Yeah, I don't think that was anything that any of us talked about putting on there. I think that maybe it was waiting if we were gonna get results from the testing or whatever, and we haven't gotten those back officially yet, so that's kind of what that was for.
I think too, if I might through the chair, I think Dave Pelton was gonna come back to us with some figures. He was gonna look at the what cost it would be for us if we were to take the gym and the auditorium in that classroom.
And I haven't
What
heard
would
from
be the
him.
cost? And I don't think he's gotten back to you.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Some work to do.
So we are on to public comment. I'm going to read this statement before I go into public comment. Any person wishing to verbally address the council on any matter before it may do so, provided permission is first obtained from the council chair. Each person addressing the council shall stand and give the person's name and address in an audible tone of voice for the record and shall limit remarks to the time allotted by the council chair. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. No person other than the council and the person having the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through the council, without the permission of the council chair. No questions shall be asked a councillor except through the council chair. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous while addressing the council shall be forthwith by the council chair barred from further audience before the council unless permission to continue be granted by the majority vote of the council. I do have one email that I will read. It says, good afternoon, Winslow Town Manager Ella Bowman. Whereas the Winslow Town Council,
All right.
it's all good, is our legislative branch, and during the course of meeting motions are made in conducting town business, I'd like to suggest going forward, it would be extremely helpful if the town clerk always states the exact motion immediately prior to the actual vote. No one should need a reminder that during the course of every council meeting, a legal record is being made. The current practice is very confusing for the public. I'm assuming at times it's confusing for even the town clerk along with councilors and usually goes something like this during a discussion. Does anyone want to make a motion? I make a motion. I second it. Forwarded by a vote. Credit Councilor Macklin, and possibly because of his legal training, always clearly states his motions and typically has it written down. God forbid a judge would ever have to sort through a discussion with differing council opinions to attempt at figuring out exactly what was voted on regardless of what was written minutes of a meeting published at a later date. I've sat through several council meetings and have heard mutterings a few times from the public. What are they voting on? A clerk reading the motion prior to each vote is common practice in most towns, and clearly both the national and state level is mandatory. Winslow should not be an exception to good procedural practice going forward. Sincerely, Ron Poulin, District 1, Maple Ridge Road. Does anybody else have any public comment?
My name is Heather Thorne, and I live on the Abbott Road in the rural district, 361 if you need the number. I was just told that there was changes to what I'm going to talk about, but I want to at least say what I have written. Much to my surprise, our zoning has been amended to allow an event venue as a conditional use. At first, I was thinking that when there was a change in a zone, that every person should receive a flyer, a mailer, or even a postcard notifying that this change may be happening. That way, if they wanted to support or oppose it, they could have a say. When I looked into this, I then found out there was actually a public hearing on this topic that I knew nothing about, and there were no comments from the public on it at the public hearing. If I didn't know about this, did anyone else? Did no one see a problem with it? Did no one want to speak up? Or did the people in the rural district really not know about it? I decided to start digging into how the word gets out about public hearings, and here's what I found. A notice of public hearing on a proposed amendment shall be posted on the town bulletin board and published in a newspaper of general circulation within 7 to 30 days of the hearing. There were actually multiple variants of this, and one was said between 14 and 30 days. One said published in newspaper 2 times. One described the first publication to be at least 12 days before the hearing, and the second publication to be at least 7 days before the hearing. Either way, the only notification that was published regarding this public hearing in a newspaper was in the December 7th issue of the Town Line for a December 11th meeting. That's only a 4-day notice. I called the Town Line this morning to ask some questions, and I found out that the Town Line does not even go to all the households, which I actually thought it did because I've gotten in the past. I had asked if the public hearings were available online, and she said that they were entered onto their website, but the only one available online was from April of 2023. I checked on the Morning Sentinel website, which brought me to mainpublicnotices.com, and there are also no public notices for Winslow between November 1st and December 15th. The other public hearing procedure that was not followed is that the planning board shall no later than 45 days after the hearing make its written recommendation to the town council. The planning board wrote the recommendation to the town council on February 1st. It states in the letter that the joint public hearing between the planning board and the town council was on January 15th. It was actually on December 11th. The event venue was not on the agenda or even mentioned at the January 15th town council meeting. That means that the 45-day rule was not followed for the written recommendation, as it was actually 52 days between the hearing and the written recommendation. When speaking in the code office, they told me that only neighbors could be notified by certified mail if it was a specific address requesting a change or permit. As I dug into this amendment, it was very much tied to an event venue application that was received back in September. If this event venue conditional use is getting added because of their request, why weren't neighbors notified at that time? And if the public hearing procedures and timeframes were not followed as stated, is this amendment to the conditional use effective? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
My name is William Sadowski. I live on Quimby Lane. This morning, I went into the town office. I have an intelligent conversation with the town manager, and I was very rudely told to leave. And you people are the ones that hire and fire, and I expect to have something done about this. Now, if you'd like to talk to me about it, I'll give you my phone number, or I'll come to a meeting. But something's gonna be done about this. I've lived in this town all my life, and I've never had no, what would you call it, very rude throwing out. That's all I have to say. And one other thing I got to say, in the wind, the town of Winslow has about 2,000 plus yards, cubic yards of material they're planning on hauling to my neighbor's place. Now, if you want to save some money, that's where you can save some money right there. The price of the trucking and the loading and all of that stuff, the wear and tear on the equipment, is all going to be on the town. And I really don't want to pay for that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
District 5. Two things I would ask for the council, and Ella has tried to address this. For those of us who are sitting in the back of the room, we cannot hear what you're saying. A lot of you sit way back. The speakers are not either turned up or something, and we can't hear. Say nothing about what you're voting on. So please just be mindful of that we can't hear in the back of the room. The second thing I'd like to say is, with the huge budget that we have, huge budget, to quibble about $30,000 in savings that we can save people who are struggling to pay their taxes. And I understand there are gonna be people who take advantage of that. But to quibble over a $30,000 decrease in the percentage that we could offer as a token to the town of Winslow does not seem unreasonable. But on the same hand, I understand that we need 4 new positions for the school department. And if you have 4 new positions, and I'd have to go back and look it up to see what those positions amounted to serve a percentage of our students, which is a lot smaller than it was when I went to school. I was double sessioned. May be necessary, but I was taught math, and math says if someone gives you $1, you can only split that dollar so many ways without pushing that burden onto somebody else. We all know the hoorah with the taxes that went up last year, the mill rate and everything. And if we're gonna be mindful of $30,000, which I think is not unreasonable to ask that we put that rate down, which you did tonight, and I appreciate that, even for 1 year, that we need to look into the other programs that we have, and cuts are gonna have to be made someplace at some time, whether it's this year, next year, because I only have $1, and you keep taking more from our dollars as we are older and retire. Please be very mindful of that and don't dismiss $30,000, because that might be my life savings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Steve Susi, Sam Street, Winslow. This is a question just for the school district, since you're here. Last year, there was an incident in Fairfield that involved a school-based health clinic dispensing medications, drugs, I believe narcotics, to a student, and the parents were not notified. So I'm wondering, does Winslow have a school-based health clinic in the school system? Are there plans for one? Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once.
Mike Willett, China Road, Winslow.
Come right up here, sir.
I don't think it'll get any louder up here, but I live on the China Road in Winslow, and I just had a comment on the couple teachers you're gonna hire. As the town manager said, you can't even get people to work 4 days now with all the coddling. I mean, all of us had problems at home or at school or whatever, and we made it through it, and we all seem to have done all right. And I just think that's why we can't hire anybody. I have a small business. You can't get anybody to work now, and it's gonna get worse because they're just not tough anymore. They're all just, oh, they're gonna take care of me this way, or I can't do that, and it's just too much coddling. I don't like that word, but that's my comment. It's gonna get worse.
Thank you.
Okay, one more time. Anybody else?
Through the chair.
Yes, Mike.
Can I change my vote on the passing of that budget?
I don't believe you can. You can change it on the next vote,
Second
Mike.
reading.
You can change your vote before the time that the clerk announces the final
Okay.
vote. Or we have a second reading coming up. You can change your vote then.
Yeah, so you can amend your vote. You just can't do it right now, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Show of hands. Thank you.